We're gonna give you a perfect formula to master that old man strength, and we're gonna start right now. One thing that we've got to do, and I struggled with this when I was at the Olympics this past year, I struggled to get into a routine. I recognize that being older has to be defined. First of all, I think that if you have multiple kids, you're probably older, right? If you wake up in the morning and your joints are super stiff, you're probably older. If it takes you a little bit longer when you're standing at the urinal, you're probably a little bit older. If you love food, right? Like that's a big problem that we have, is that we're starting to get into our mid 40s and we're looking at this and we're saying like, wow, now I see why older guys that are 50, 60 years old struggle with things. Food tastes so good. We're really, really busy. We have to work and then we have to go pick up our kids and we don't set aside time for ourselves. And it's also really fun to be lazy. I still remember being younger and watching Seinfeld, and George walks in and he's wearing sweatpants and Seinfeld's like, yo, that's just a way to show the world that you just don't care anymore. And the thing is sometimes it's fun to show the world that you don't care. So when you're getting older, it's enjoyable to be lazy. So we've got to recognize that laziness, recognize the difficulties and challenges, and then follow this specific formula so that you can get healthier and live for a long time. So one of the big factors here is that a lot of older dudes don't know where to start. They don't know what to do, and they'll make this excuse like they think about when they were a high school athlete or a collegiate athlete and they need to train that way. So they're like, oh, I could never get back to that. But all we have to do is just start moving. And that could be, let's say that you're working a desk job, okay? You're working 60 hours a week. Life's tough, okay? You're making 150K a year. Everything's just stacked up against you. What you can do is just take 15 to 20 minutes and say, all right, 4 days a week, I need to just start moving. I'm gonna do 4 sets of 20 squats to my desk chair and stand back up. And I'm just gonna do that for 4 sets of 20, okay? And maybe you can do split squats, standing next to your desk here. But all you have to do is just start moving, okay? You just hit some simple body weight work. So the first big guideline is to look at adding in movement hours, okay? In a week, can you do that and add in 1 to 2 hours? That's the baseline. And then we're gonna get into more specific timelines as we work through this, make progress, so that you're actually training consistently week to week. Okay, so after we start with just moving, the next big step is that we wanna break down the week, okay, in our training into resistance training, endurance training, and jumps-based training. And all of these things factor into longevity. So if we do resistance-based training and we can maintain or increase our muscle mass over a long period of time, that should in turn help us be healthier. Okay, if we can do endurance work for a specified number of minutes each week, that's gonna help increase our VO2 max, and that in turn will lead to greater longevity. If we can do explosive work, that has a huge correlation with longevity. So to start off with resistance-based work, let's say that you've done 2 to 3 weeks of body weight squats, okay? The next step is try to get a bar on your back. Now we can do some type of resistance-based work. Maybe it's a squat, maybe it's a deadlift. Maybe you're starting to do, 3 days a week. You wanna do 1 day has a squat, 1 day has a bench press, and 1 day has easy bodybuilding exercises. So we're doing 3 days a week of resistance-based work, and you just build up over time. Those 3 days a week should comprise about 45 to 60 minutes. And one thing I wanted to share with you guys is that I get a lot of DMs about my training, and inside Peak Strength recently, I have updated Peak Strength with a Ghost Face program. So inside of that, we have lifting, we have endurance, we have jumps-based training, based off of exactly what I'm doing in training. And you can even alter some of the specific lifts, some of the specific types of endurance. You can decrease the endurance work and build into that nice and slowly, but it's exactly what you need. Now, going back to this, resistance-based training, 3 days a week, 45 to 60 minutes. That's a big one. Resistance-based training, 45 to 60 minutes, 3 days a week. Okay, the next part, we talked about resistance-based work. Now we're getting into the jumps. Okay, we'll see videos of old guys doing really cool sprints, doing different jumps. They're 55, 60 years old, and you sit there and you're like, man, I wanna be like that dude. But again, we don't know where to start. And honestly, this is a simple thing. If we look at it and just say, okay, for 30 minutes a week, let's just add in jumps. So we can sit here, little hops, right? Hops here, Hops here, simple, right? Easy, 30 minutes a week. Start doing some jump rope, something like that. As you start to get in better shape and you take it easy, you focus on how you're feeling. We build into one big session. So every single week, you're doing one session of jumps. Let's say that you build into something like 150 total jumps, but that might be 120 hops that you're just doing simple movements here, okay? Side jumps, box jumps, simple bounds. A big one here, a big one that I want to challenge everybody on is skipping. You're doing simple skips, stuff that's going to help you stay coordinated. Those are low intensity, but it's going to help with your coordination, and it's going to help you stay athletic. And then over time, you can impress your kids and try and do hurdle hops here. Boom. But you have to build up to that. And then finally, as you continue through this, let's say it's a year and a half of doing this jumps-based training, you can add in about another 30 minutes of work. So typically what I recommend with jumps, one session a week is the big time goal. We wanna get to where we have 150 to 200 jumps. Easy takes up, the easy hops is about 75%. The rest, you can have harder jumps like the hurdle hops here. But if you can build into 2 years of training, now you can add in another 20 minutes of sprint work. So you can find a hill, go in front of your house, 4 to 6 sprints. Take it easy. You don't want to blow out the hamstring right off the bat. Take it easy, build into that over time. But all of a sudden, 2-3 years down the road, you're able to do more athletic stuff. You can do those skips. Try the backward skips, they're really hard. And then you can even add in the hurdle hops and some type of actual sprint work, okay? So that's that next big thing with the jumps. Okay, so we talked about resistance-based training. Remember, that's try to get to 3 days a week, 45 to 60 minutes. We got into the jumps. Okay, start at 20 to 30 minutes, build up to one full session over a year, around 60 minutes, try to get 150 to 200 jumps, touches, like those little skips, hops, whatever you wanna do, box jumps. Build into that 1.5 sessions where you can add in some types of sprints. Now, endurance work. I recommend, as an older individual, getting on and doing LSD work, so long, slow distance, something that I would do. This is something that I did personally as I built into running my first marathon. I spent about 8 months just going on the assault bike, just going on a rower, just going for walks. Nothing high intense. 120 to 160 minutes, 180 minutes, somewhere in that range. I would set aside time and say, okay, I wanna get my heart rate elevated for 2 hours, but I might do it 1 hour on a Monday, 1 hour on a Saturday morning. And then over time, I could add in a third day and then a fourth day if I really had a specific goal. But the big thing is that you do that LSD work. Start on an assault bike, start on a rower that is, go into a swimming pool, something that is not as high impact, okay? Then if you wanna start to do running things, if you start to lose weight and you feel better, you're feeling stronger, you're doing the lifts, you're starting to look better, the next thing that you can do is, all right, now I wanna actually start to run. The one big aspect with the jumps is the jumps will help your body handle the pounding from running. So then I'm gonna bring up the VO2 max aspect. Based off of a lot of research, okay, a lot of information right now is showing us that if you have a higher VO2 max, you will live longer. So some of the stuff that we can do is doing the LSD work for 2 to 3 hours a week will help increase our VO2 max, but it's not the best way to do it. The next thing that we can do is do high intensity interval work on an assault bike, on a rower, in the swimming pool, or if you want to do like half-mile hill sprint. Okay, so I would recommend if you get to the volume point in this endurance, you can build in 30 to 60 minutes a week of VO2 max work. So one session that's 30 minutes, another session that's 30 minutes. And what you can do is say, all right, we get on the assault bike. Okay, I wanna skyrocket my heart rate for about 2 minutes and then drop it down. So I can look at the RPMs and say, okay, I know for me, if I get to 80 RPMs, right here, okay, once I get to 80 RPMs and I hold that for 30 seconds, my heart rate will get to about 155 to 160. And then if I do that for about 30 minutes, guess what? My heart rate will go even higher. Now I wanna be aware of where that range is. For me, it's about 170 to 175. If I can do that for 20 to 30 minutes, twice a week, I'm gonna blow up my VO2 max, meaning it's gonna rise and I'm gonna be able to process oxygen and feed my muscles a little bit more effectively. So I recommend going back over this. LSD work, start off easy. Start on a bike, start on a rower, get in a pool, 120 to 180 minutes. And then as you get more in shape, more athletic. You're following the Ghostface program available at peakstrength.app, the Google Play Store, or the Apple iOS Store. You're following exactly what I'm doing. Now you put in that VO2 max work, 2 sessions, 30 minutes each session. And the unique part here is that you could get an easy lift in and then do the VO2 max work later, or VO2 max work in the morning and then do a body weight workout at night for 30 minutes. And you just gotta get creative with that time. That's one of the big aspects. Now I'm gonna give you some bonus stuff that we can work on to continue this perfect old man guideline. So another big thing that I like to make excuses on is gonna be doing simple stuff like mobility, nutrition work. I like to ignore that and I like to pretend that I'm super, super busy and I can't actually do that. But then I recognize that I go to my son's soccer practice and I'm watching, and while I'm watching, I'm also scroll braining on Instagram. And so what we can do is just take that step back and say, when you're at your son's practice, either watch your son play soccer, or you can do yoga while you're watching him play. It's okay to do 2 things in that regard. You know, you still wanna be paying attention to your child, but you can do 5 to 15 minutes of some type of mobility or yoga work. I recommend trying to get that done 10 to 15 minutes, 5 days a week. I even recommend here, one thing that I've noticed with myself is that just hanging off of a bar, doing easy knee raises here, this helps with my upper back mobility. This helps me even with my grip, which is another indicator of longevity. It helps me get a little bit more loose because I'm super tight in my upper back. Now, some of the other big factors here, you can do yoga, you can follow a simple mobility routine. We've got mobility inside of Peak Strength, and make sure that you're just slowly building into these different positions. If we're talking about nutrition, I recommend start at 180 grams of protein. Start there every single day, 180 grams of protein, and then you can rearrange that based off of how you feel. Personally, I'm trying to get to 215 by my birthday, which is gonna be in March, okay? So one thing for me, I'm eating higher carb, higher protein. For me personally, it's very easy to overeat on a higher fat diet. I love how fat tastes. So I just crush food if I'm on a higher fat diet. So we have to be aware of how do we mitigate that issue, right? So 6 days a week, I'm trying to be in a caloric deficit. And I recommend that's a big thing here for the old man guys. You guys out there, if you actually hold yourself accountable, you're not entitled to being fat. Okay, we've got to lose a little bit of this weight, get healthier, okay, for our family, for our children. And the big factor here is that now what you can do is 6 days a week, try to be in a caloric deficit. That 7th day, maybe you're in a 200 to 400 caloric surplus. That's gonna be a really good way for you to start to lose that weight. You're doing that mobility, 10 to 15 minutes every single day. And then the other big aspect here, I think, is that when you start to recognize the 180 grams and you figure out if you're a high carb guy or a high fat guy, now that helps you show your children how to prioritize their health. And then finally, if we're thinking about some bonuses, I think that if you could get into a sauna 3 to 4 days a week, that's fantastic. If you're privileged enough to have a sauna near you. So I've been to Europe where every single building in the entire town seemed to have a sauna, whereas in the US, we don't have as many saunas. So if you can get in a sauna, that's great. If you can meditate or pray every single day, that's another big step in the right direction. And then before bed, turn off all of your electronics. One thing that we've done here at my house is that we've said, okay, for 2 hours before bedtime, we're not actually watching electronics. And then that's gonna help you actually sleep better, and it's gonna help your HRV improve. So all of these things, it's overwhelming, but start slowly, okay? Just get up and move as that big step, and then look at each thing. Resistance training 3 days a week, try to get to that point. Cardio, start cyclical, try to get to 2 hours a week. Mobility, try to do 15 to 20 minutes every single day. Nutrition work, try to get to 180 grams of protein. Try and keep that as simple as possible. This is gonna help you improve that old man lifestyle, because remember, freaks, if you want to become a champion, you've always got to cultivate your power. Peace.